Hey, 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 and welcome to another episode of Reality Rights. I am author Ellie Alexander, and I'm here with the tech guy.
That's right. And today we're talking about everything, all things that are out of a writer's control, right?
All things that authors have little to no control over, which I think is an important topic to discuss, not only for potential new writers out there, because when I'm coaching and teaching new writers, a lot of these things come up, and I have to sort of set them straight about what may or may not happen in the publishing process, but also for readers, because I'm often surprised at the kind of questions that I receive from readers in terms of everything from, a book showing up damaged to, maybe like why a book is priced the way it is. And that's something that authors have really no control over.
Totally. And so before we dive in, I just want to, if you're new to this podcast, I am here as the tech guy with author Ellie Alexander. We kind of know each other.
Just a little bit.
It's just a behind the scenes secret. We're married. Yeah. And we're going to talk about all things writing, writing world, publishing. Sometimes Taylor Swift and Star Wars leak in. It's kind of everything. But you can find us anywhere on your favorite podcasting app. So be sure to follow us and catch up on all the back episodes. And if you like it and you get anything from it, you learn something, maybe we make you laugh.
Okay.
Hey, give us a rating. It really does help. So that's Reality Rights.
Reality Rights. Yeah. And it's true. I think, in terms of one of the things that I have always wanted to do in my career and want to continue to do with this podcast is to dispel some myths that are pervasive in the book world and the writing world. And so we try to do that as often as we can on this podcast.
And oh boy, are there a lot of myths.
Wait, there are? What?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there are myths about the myths.
Yeah, that's right. Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, I know. It's like myths. That's a weird word when you say it. So, am I saying that right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's going to take me back to my speech therapy days when I had to do S-blends with kids and we would do like snake.
Yeah. Don't like the snakes.
Well, you had to get the S in there. All right, totally. But we digress. Today, we are going to talk about things that authors have little to usually no control over. And some of this is specific to traditional publishing, but a lot of it also comes into play with independent publishing too. And for starters, let's kick it off with things like binding. I just got an email last week from a reader who was like, "Hey, Ellie, it's really important. I want to give you a heads up that, pages fell out of the book that I was reading," which is terrible. Like, I hate that. But that's something that authors don't have any control over.
No control. No control. Wait, just to dispel any myth that might be out there.
Yeah.
There are like any book that you see on the bookshelf in a bookstore, any book that you see online on an e-retail site, any book that you see at your local library, the author did not bind that book themselves. No one is sitting at home.
Really wouldn't want me binding it, right?
No. It is bookbinding is an art. First of all, it is an art and some people do bind books. That is what they do, but authors
do not.
It is I don't want to say no authors because I don't know that for a fact, and we're all about the facts here on Reality Rights, but I'm going to tell you that the vast majority of authors they don't have time, right? They're writing the books. That is a full-time job in and of itself. So it's not their skill set. It's not my skill set. I don't bind the books either. So
how would you ever distribute them? I mean, I think you're right. There's probably like somebody who's like really, artistic, who's doing like niche copies of an illustrated book, who's probably doing binding themselves. I have a friend and a colleague from Ashland who does book restoration. And that's an incredible process. I got to go to her studio years ago and watch her bind books and then restore these gorgeous old covers. So that, like you're saying, is an art form in itself. But regardless of whether you're traditionally published or you're publishing independently, you as the author are not binding books. Like I would just be here all day with my glue stick. Okay,
Yeah.
I finished my word count. Now I got to start putting some pages in.
Well, and it's not something that the author can do anything about either. So for the readers out there, if you have a book fall apart, take it back to the store, take it back to your library, and they will happily replace it if it was a defective binding. That happens sometimes. It's just like anything. Cars get recalled all the time because things aren't, they're not built correctly, or something goes wrong with a part. It happens with books too. Glue is not perfect, and sometimes, all these things built by machines, 1 or 1,000 of them may come out and not be perfect. So take it back to the store, get your money back, get a replacement copy. Let your librarian know. The library will definitely replace the book. But the author cannot do either of those things. Yeah. So
I can do nothing. And in that situation, if a reader reaches out to me, I'm always like, that's such a bummer that happened. But yes, do those things that you just said, because I have no control over it at that end. Even if it's something, editorial, I can probably reach out to my editor. But the editing team, even at the publishing houses, they can't do anything about that because that's a whole other department. So I would say over the course of my career, I don't think there's ever been a book released that hasn't had some sort of it, like that one reader hasn't had a bad binding, or like sometimes the trim size gets cut wrong.
Right. Or it's offset. Yeah, it's like the type is farther down the page, and like what should be the last line on the page gets cut off because of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just because thousands of books are getting printed, and like you're saying, it's all automated. Yes. So we don't want you to have a bad experience, but go back to the bookstore, go back to the library. They will return it. There's a whole channel and process for that to happen, because I don't want to say it's common, but pages can fall out.
Right. It's also not an indication that every book has a bad binding.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's the other thing. Like, and again, I guess disclaimer, when we're talking about these things, we're not telling readers, like, we're not jumping down anybody's throat. We're not trying to get mad at it. This is all like, it's educational, but
yes.
And it just doesn't, I don't want to say waste of time. What's another way to say waste of time without saying waste of time? It doesn't, like, readers don't need to take time to tell authors about this because there's nothing they can do about it. Instead, readers should take the time to go through the appropriate channels to get a replacement book, get their money back, whatever the fix is, and then everybody's happy.
Totally. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's that same thing. With any sort of reader interaction, I always want to make sure that somebody's having a fantastic reading experience. But when it's something that's out of my control, then I'm like, I can't help you. I'm so sorry. Like,
right.
Get back to the bookstore. They will help you. I promise.
Right.
Okay. So yes, things like that. The follow-up to this one would be, hey, Ellie, I ordered your book, let's say off of Amazon. And I got my copy and the package came damaged. Like, again.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And people are probably like listening to this going, oh, come on, Ellie. I mean, does anybody write in and actually say that? And I am here to tell you, she is not exaggerating. I mean, I am going to say at least once or twice per week.
Yeah.
Per week.
Yeah.
We get an email about this where it's like, it could be Amazon, it could be some independent bookstore. Sure. It doesn't matter. It's just always like, they didn't package it well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so put yourself in the place of Ellie Alexander, and you get this message, or any author.
Like all of my author friends too. Yeah.
Put yourself in the place of the author. Is the expectation that the author is then going to call Amazon, Barnes and Noble, whatever bookstore, and say, hey, I had a reader got a package. They're going to be like, because the truth of the matter is, when that package left the store, whatever store it was, it was probably in perfect condition. And then the U.S. Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, whatever delivery service got their hands on it, and something happened along the way. There dozens of people who touch the package between the store and the reader. There are machines that touch it. Like, it happens. But again, just reach out to whoever you got it from, let them know, and they will happily replace your book or give you your money back, or both sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
but they're the ones that can do it, not the authors.
Yeah. And sometimes the best part is like, if a lot of times you don't even have to return the bad copy. So then you can take that and share it with a friend, or not a bad copy, but, maybe like just the edge of the
corners
covers turned up or something. Yeah, exactly. And then you get a new copy too. I had a friend. And so this again is true whether you're traditionally published or indie published. I just had a friend who had this happen. And the reader kind of went back and forth with her in this whole exchange of like, I need you to intervene. And she's like, I don't even know your order number. Like, they won't talk to me. I can't.
Right.
I would love
they
to
can't.
help you.
They cannot divulge that information.
No.
There are laws against that, actually. Right. So
there should be.
Yeah, well, and actually, just to back up for listeners who may be new, darlings who may be new, you kind of get the best of both worlds, because you're both traditionally published and indie published, or in this case, maybe the worst of both worlds, right? So when we're talking about these issues, these are definitely things like we have personal experience with. Sometimes too much personal experience, I would say, but
sometimes, or I just think it's that thing that there's a lot that on the publishing side that readers might not understand too. So that's why we always want to pull back the curtain and be like, hey, yes, we're with you.
Yeah.
In no way, shape, or form do we ever want you to get, a damaged package. But then what's the appropriate channel to go through?
Right. And I guess people should know that we're both readers. I would call you a prolific reader, and I am more of the mediocre reader.
Well, I don't think mediocre is right. I'm just a really fast reader. But then the problem is, I don't always retain everything. Like, I'm fully invested in the story in the moment. But then if you asked me 6 months later, I can give you big picture things. Yeah. I mean, this isn't true for like my favorite books of all time, but in general, then the rest is fuzzy because I'm moving on to the next, where you are a little bit of a slower reader, but you retain a lot more.
Yeah, that just happened recently. I can't remember what book it was, because if I were to draw a Venn diagram of like what I read and what you read, there'd be two massive circles, and there is some overlap in the middle. Yeah. And it was a book that we had both read, and I asked you, I said, okay, I can't.
Oh, it was A Small Way or Long Way to a Small Lonely Planet by Becky Chambers.
Small Angry Planet. Yeah. Long Way. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even remember the title.
Yeah. And I was talking to you about one scene, and I was like, oh, that was really weird when this happened. And you're like, that didn't happen. It was about the AI, the AI on the ship. And you were like, that didn't happen. And I was like, that definitely happened. It was like, it happened. I'll show you where it happened. And it was you just blew right through it. So
just blew right through it. Yeah. Exactly.
So anyway, we're readers. She's a writer. I'm a marketer. And
that's our Venn diagram too.
That's that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
And we have had our fair share of, books that have come that have not been packaged well. And we have had our fair share of books that, something's wrong with the binding, the page trim, etc. So we feel you on that. We just want to make sure you get a copy, and going to the author is not going to make that happen. So,
we've had that happen with your books, in the independently published books that we've done ourselves, where we get them and we're like, oh, no. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk another thing that most authors have little to no control over. And this is more specific to traditional publishing. And that is distribution.
Oh boy. This is a big one.
It is a big one. When we're talking about distribution, that means so my job as the author is I send the book in to the editorial team, and it goes through rounds of copy edits and page proofs and things like that. Cover design. We'll talk about covers in a little while. Arcs, an advanced reader copy will show up, and that's where we're doing a lot of this work, where it's like you're going through, you're checking that things line up, there are missing sentences, et cetera, et cetera. After that, I don't see it again. Then it shows up magically in bookstores everywhere. But I also don't have any input in terms of how it gets distributed. So the publishing houses have relationships, and in some cases, full teams who have bookstores. They have different areas of the country that they represent, and they have relationships with those booksellers. And so with some of my titles, they are distributed everywhere. And with some of them, there's limited distribution. And that is also true if you're publishing independently, because you probably aren't going to be able to have your books in every bookshop, let's say in across the United States.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have no control over when they get distributed too.
Right.
So you, I guess by the time this episode airs, you will have had a new book come out.
Yes.
In the Bake Shop series.
Sticks and Stones.
Book 19 in the Bake Shop Mystery series. But we're at the time of this recording is still a few days to go before that's released. And you've already heard from readers who found it in bookshops 2 weeks ago. It was already on the shelves. Yeah, it was already on the shelf 2 weeks ago.
Barnes and Nobles and local bookstores.
So and not, that's annoying from a marketing standpoint, but it's great. But the opposite end of that
for a reader. Like if I'm a reader and I'm excited, that's great.
Yeah.
Yes.
But on the opposite end of that, you've got not every so once the publisher sends the book to the distributor, whether the publisher is St. Martin's Press or Ellie Alexander, Sweet Lemon Press, right? Our press. That puts it into a catalog that bookstores can then order from, but they don't have to order from, and they have to be looking for it to find it. So if your local bookshop doesn't have a book you're looking for, it doesn't mean that it's not available. It means that they haven't ordered it. So ask them. Just ask your bookseller, hey, can you get me a copy of, Sticks and Scones by Ellie Alexander? And they will be like, yes. And in 1 to 2 minutes, they can order it online and have it to you within a couple of days, usually at most, because they will order it directly from the distributor. And then they will know, oh, Ellie Alexander has a new book out. And again, I'm using Ellie Alexander because she's right there. Books right there.
This is true for every author.
But this is true for every author.
And true for indie titles too. So if you have an indie author you love, it's less likely that the bookstore, unless they already have a relationship with that author, it's less likely you're going to find that title just on the shelves randomly. But if you put in an order, then a bookseller might also discover a new title that they're like, oh, wow, this is a good match for our reading demographic.
Or a new series or whatever. Yeah. And it's especially with independent bookshops, they don't have unlimited shelf space. So they're going to order what's selling, and they can't have every book on the shelf, and they can't discover every book on their own either, because these are usually very small operations with, a limited number of employees. And while they are fantastic and amazing, they can't cover everything. So just talk to your local bookseller and they will be able to order it. But again, both of these things are not things that authors have any control over whatsoever.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So like if you, a case in point would be, a reader emailing me and be like, I can't find, the new blah, 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 but in my local shop. Can you help me? And my help is like, yes, go to your indie shop and say, can you order a copy for me? But I, as the author, have no control, and I can't really reach out to them either, because that would be weird. Like, put my book on your shelf. That's never going to happen.
No. I mean, that's true. It's also a time factor, because you have, over the years, you've built like solid relationships with some amazing bookshops around the country, and those are bookshops that are constantly looking for your new books. They probably have alerts set up that anytime Ellie Alexander has a new book come out, they're going to order some copies of it for their shelves. But there aren't enough hours in the day for you to build relationships with every single independent bookshop out there. And
the same is true for independent booksellers, right? That's one of the fun myths that I kind of explore in my new secret bookcase mysteries. Like, there's also this idea that like booksellers sit around in their cozy bookshops and read all day. Like, no, not true. Totally. They're running a small business, right? So they don't have time to seek that out. And they rely heavily, if we're talking about traditional publishing, they rely heavily on their sales reps who come through and say like, hey, here are the titles that, we're really excited about for summer reading. Here's what's coming for fall. They go to shows to be able to see like, okay, what are the publishers really promoting and pushing right now too. So that's its own beast.
Yeah, and they rely on their customers, their readers, to let them know about, you know, great new books and great new series that they're enjoying, and you know, that's how they decide what to carry in their shops.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, to tag along this sort of distribution end of things. Oh, the other thing that I want to say though too is with Amazon, there are things like KU, Kindle Unlimited, which you buy a subscription to KU, and then anything that's in that platform you read for free. I mean, for free, you're paying for the subscription, right?
Sure.
But you're not buying those individual books.
You can read as many books as you want, you know, in a month.
You could read millions.
Yeah. But whether or not but whether or not you retain that million books, yeah.
I mean, does it matter? Like, you just have great stats for good reason. So the traditional publishers, for the most part, have not been in that space. That was a space that really was indie authors, and that's what helped grow that platform. I just read a stat that it's the second largest bookstore in the world right now, KU.
Wow.
But again, especially with my traditionally published titles, I don't have any say over how those books get distributed from an ebook perspective either. So I will hear from readers like, why is the Bake Shop not on that platform, or why is Secret Bookcase there and this one isn't? So that's all just based on different publishing houses and or if you're independently published. So
right, and yeah, one thing that readers, one thing that they should know is that all these publishers have different business relationships with these different ebook distributors, and so it's more advantageous to them, meaning monetarily advantageous to them, to distribute on certain platforms versus others. And so, especially from a traditional publishing standpoint, an author has no control over that. But also on the indie publishing side, there are rules too. Some of these platforms, KU is one of them. If you decide to put your book on KU, technically, according to the rules, you're not supposed to have that ebook available on any other platform while it's on Kindle.
Apple, Kobo. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Only while it's on Kindle Unlimited. I think I just said Kindle back then, but it's just only Kindle Unlimited. And then once it's off Kindle Unlimited, it can be offered on as an ebook for purchase on, you know, Barnes & Noble, Apple, Google, Kobo, all of them. But
right. So different publishing houses have different strategies in terms of how they're using that platform and pricing.
Yeah.
Oh, we can go into pricing, but we're gonna circle back to pricing because the other two things I want to talk about still fall into this concept of distribution, and that's audio and other editions. Oh, yeah. So like foreign translations. So I will often receive emails from readers saying like, hey, why isn't this title on audio yet? Or why aren't your books available in French? Or, you know, I don't know, Dutch. And a lot of times, you know, the message will be like, the way that it's framed is like, Ellie, could you please get your books translated into French because I'm a French reader, or could you please get your books on audio? So the way that works from a traditional standpoint is that my contract covers the books themselves, ebook, etc. And then the other rights get sold independently. So audio rights get sold out to an audio publishing house, and foreign rights get sold by different foreign translation presses. And I have no control over whether somebody may or may not buy those. Usually, luckily, I'm crossing fingers and toes, especially with audio. Audio is that most everything has gotten picked up. But I don't have control over when those release dates come. It's always fantastic when they line up with the key release, the main release, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes the audio comes out a few months later. And then with foreign translations, again, that's just based on a foreign publisher saying, wow, I really am interested in this Bake Shop series. I would like to buy the rights and translate it to French. So I would love to have everything translated everywhere, and I would love to have audio of all of my books, but I have zero control over that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And again, that for readers out there, that is the reason that audiobook covers look different than the print book covers and the ebook covers is because it's a different publisher, and they don't use they don't have the rights to use the same art. So that's why they'll look different a lot of the time. I don't know if a lot of people know that. I didn't know that before you started writing, and because I always thought, wow, this is weird. Like, I know it, you know,
close,
like, right. It's, but that is why.
Yes. So when it comes to your favorite books being in audio and or in some other language, odds are the author has no control over whether or not that happens, and they would be ecstatic when and if it does happen.
Yeah. No, that was super cool to see the Sloane Krause series it published in Japan. Those books are really cool looking.
Amazing. Yes. Okay. And then the last thing that kind of dovetails on this too is movie deals. So I would say at least once a week, sometimes more than once a week, I will get a lovely email from you, darlings, which I so appreciate, saying, Ellie, will you please make your books into movies? Yes, I mean 100% yes, I would love that, but no, I cannot do that myself.
Totally. So what people don't know is I am not a movie director in my spare time. I'm not an audio engineer, right? I mean, yeah, exactly. We have no Hollywood connections. It's like, so that is not something authors have control over. No. What ends up happening is screenwriters find books that they love, popular books or even not popular books that they just happen to love, and they get an idea on how to write that, because writing for TV and movies is completely different from writing a novel. And it is that is a talent in and of itself, and that is not something that some novel writers can do it and have done it. There have been very famous examples, all of which are escaping me right now. But we just watched something where the author of the book actually wrote it for It was Dark Matter. Dark Matter.
Oh, Dark Matter. Oh, Blake Crouch.
Blake Crouch wrote the book and wrote the.
That's because Blake Crouch did you no wrong. Like,
I know that was amazing. Like, if you haven't checked out Dark Matter on Apple TV Plus, you got to watch it. It's amazing. And the book. Read the book.
Read the book, Dark Matter, and also while you're at it, go read Upgrade too, because that was one of my favorite books of the summer.
That was good too. Yeah, that was really good. But anyway, so that Blake Crouch is a I would say rare example of an author.
Outlier.
Who does both. But even with an author like Blake Crouch, who writes, both the book and the screenplay, that's just the start of what needs to happen. There's so much more, because even making just a TV, series of TV movies on like Hallmark, for example, is a multi-million-dollar endeavor for any studio, and
a studio has to buy those. And
So and that takes years to negotiate and coordinate, and and then they may make something that never sees the light of day too. So
exactly.
The author has no control over that whatsoever.
No.
But it would be great. It would be really great.
I'm as equally enthusiastic as you are, darlings. I just cannot make that happen myself as much as I would love to. And I would also say I would be a terrible screenwriter, because I think I would. My skill set, I know this about myself. And it's also sort of like, your greatest strength is also your weakness, because I think one of the things that I am good at is these like descriptions of place, of setting, of food, like so rich, but also it is my Achilles heel, because I will go too deep into that sometimes. And then I have to remind myself, like, no, get back to the mystery, right?
Yeah.
You don't need 3 or 4 paragraphs. Well, a screenwriter, they would do none of that. That is, it's all just like quick, zip, go.
It's like a 7-second scene on TV, right? So
Yeah. I would not be good at that. Yes. Yeah. So again, your favorite author, would love to hear that you want to see these characters on the screen too, as do I. But they are not the ones that can make that happen, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah. Are we crushing dreams today? Is this just...
No. I mean, I think I again, that's why I kind of did the caveat up front. Like, our goal is not to like jump all over everybody for asking questions, because please ask questions. But
Yeah.
I just like I said, it's a better use of everyone's time if people are just educated and know about this stuff, so that they know like not to come to an author for certain things and where to go to get, their either their idea heard, or, or action taken on some issue they have.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, let's talk a little bit about cover design.
Yeah.
So
That's a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one. This is something that has come up a lot with my coaching clients, like I alluded to at the beginning of the podcast, and my writing students in my mystery series masterclass. And I had this idea myself when I first got published. You think that as the author, and this is solely true for traditional publishing. If you're independently publishing, you have a lot more say and control about cover design. But as a traditionally published author, I just had a coaching client last week who is out on submission and just got requests from three agents to read her full manuscript.
That's awesome.
Joy over here. But one of her questions was, should I start sketching out cover ideas for them? And I was like, well, here's the deal. Like what happens is my editor will ask me for sort of a paragraph or two, like a very brief summary of the book, as well as some images that I might have attached to that. So let's say for Sticks and Scones, the book that will have just come out when this podcast is released, it is set in Ashland. It's summertime. Lance, the artistic director, is putting on a new show out at Uva, the vineyard. So I sent pictures of vineyards in Ashland and like an outdoor stage and Shakespeare. And then the team at the publishing house creates the cover image. But you as the author, that's the extent of the say that you have. Now, maybe if you're like Stephen King or somebody who's, right, I don't know, like a multi-millionaire a zillion times over, you have say. But as most authors in a traditional publishing house, you are not going to have a lot of say. And even my very first book covers, I was not a fan of at all. And I remember like pretty much crying to my agent, and he was like, it's going to be okay. And they never got changed. I gave feedback that was like, I don't think this matches the series. This isn't the vision. And the publishing house has their own vision and their own plan and their own marketing plan. And they usually go with that. So I will get emails from readers like, hey, why did you go with XXX on the cover? I'm like, I didn't.
Right. Yeah. And you're able to, you have been able to affect minor changes to things over the years. Yeah. But even, like the publishers, especially in traditional publishing, especially in this particular genre, because it is so prolific, color is really like they're mapping that out. And it's not just your book. It's like what books are they releasing at the same time? They don't want everything to be pink, for example.
Exactly. Right.
So that will have an effect, and the author won't get a say. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Now, I will say on the indie side, you do have the ultimate freedom, but that can sometimes be a bad thing too, because you can say what you want about the control that traditional publishers have over book design and everything, but they know what they're doing. They have, decades and decades of experience doing this. And like you said, they have marketing departments that there's research that actually goes into where they put the title, where they put the author's name, what colors are used, all that stuff. And you don't really, as an independent publisher, you don't have access to all of that all the time. Mm-hmm. So it is just
and it can be overwhelming too when you're making all of those choices.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So if you're a new writer and you're imagining yourself going down the path of traditional publishing, just like put that in the back of your head that you'll be able to make some suggestions, and then you see where it goes from there. But on the plus side, then things like distribution and getting into bookstores are going to be a lot easier for you. So there's always like a pro and a con to both paths to publication. Totally. This also leads us into book size.
Oh boy. There's been some drama about book size in this household the past few years.
Book size, book editions. So readers will be like, why, Ellie, did you publish the Sloane Krause mysteries in hardcover first?
Yeah. Why did you, Ellie?
I didn't. I don't have any say over that. Or like, why are they in mass market, or why, again, this is, I feel like a broken record, but this is not something that authors have control over. Again, in the traditional model, if you are publishing independently, you will go through and you will pick your sizes, and you'll have complete control over that. But on the flip side, if a book contract comes through, the publisher has a plan for that. They have a price point for that, which is also a question that I get. Like, why is this book priced like this? And why is this book priced like this? Not something that an author has say in.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Like you said, there are pros and cons to both approaches. And for somebody who doesn't want to have to deal with all of this stuff themselves, traditional publishing is great because Absolutely. It's taken care of for you. The flip side of that is that, readers never go to publishers to ask these questions. They always come to authors. And
because they don't know. Like,
they don't know.
You don't know.
Right. But the authors don't know. I mean, the authors don't,
But what we're saying is none of us know.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's fair. We're all on this together.
Yeah.
The last thing that comes up with this is editorial changes. And this is something that an author may potentially have control over. So let's say that you find an error in a book. Should you email an author? Well, it's always a little dicey. If it's something that's very clear, yes, absolutely. But a lot of times what a reader's perspective of a change that needs to be made may not line up with the publishing house's editorial guidelines. Mm-hmm. So let's take, for example, commas. I wrote a whole piece for my college newspaper about my love affair with the comma, or lack thereof. But one publishing house, and this has been completely true in my career, will have a set of rules and regulations for each book, their style guide, and another publishing house will have completely different standards. So, for one publishing house, it might be the Oxford comma for everything. For another publishing house, not at all. And so if, a reader is like, well, there's not an Oxford comma in this, well, it's likely that is not a mistake, that's a choice on the publishing house's part. And again, I might send in a manuscript because I've had the Oxford comma pounded into my head from having an English teacher as a dad. And my publishing house will go through and take all of those out. And I have no control over that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's true, though, even on the indie publishing side, because depending on who you have edit your book, and you should always have somebody edit your book.
Oh, my God. Yes. Hopefully
but one editor to the next, their style of choice is going to be different, and they're going to edit the book in a unique way. So you could have two editors edit the exact same manuscript and end up with different sentence structure, grammar choices, punctuation choices, all of that.
And that could be huge, if you're writing a series. In fact, one of my writers in my writer group has a very solid, long-running series, and she's just at the process now that she's having an editor put a style guide together for her for that reason, because as the series is continued, she wants to make sure there's continuity, and that if she's hiring a different editor, let's say her normal editor isn't available, that she has a baseline to be like, no, the first 5 books in the series have, had this kind of a style guide. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've gone through that with your traditional publishers too, because copy editors, especially, you've had many on the Big Shop Mystery Series is now 19 books long, soon to be 20. And I don't know, what are you on, like 7 or 8, maybe more in terms of copy editors? It's like for a while there, it seemed like there was a new one every book. And because of that, you were getting feedback that was like, no, we corrected this like 2 books ago, or not corrected, covered this 2 books ago. And now you're having to have the same conversations over again. So, but that's also something that could affect indie authors as well, because again, you might not, the person that you use regularly might not have time to get your manuscript done during, your timing. And so you go with somebody new, and the same thing happens. But that, just to jump back a couple of things,
Sure.
to audio, that's you'll allow it. Great.
This time.
That's also why there are different narrators across across series like yours, because with so many books, the same audio publisher might not buy all the books, or another publisher might jump in before the previous publisher got a chance to and get the rights, and they'll use a different narrator. And so you might get some differences there that are out of your control as well, if on the traditional route.
Right. That's been a bummer for me for the Bake Shop series, because I think there have been 3 different audio publishers thus far for 19 books. So it has jumped back and forth. And again, that's not something I have control over. And each audio publishing house has their own set of narrators who they use. So readers will be like, wait, it was this person and now it's this person. Like, why did you change? Like, I didn't. Sorry.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So I think we've covered a lot. I think we've covered a lengthy list of things that authors have little to no control over, even if we wanted to.
Well, so we've covered all this stuff, and that's been good for readers, and it's probably been good for readers to learn, because I'm sure there are some darlings out there who didn't know some of this stuff at least. And then it's been great for authors to hear this, but like, what's your advice for dealing with this? Because I know from living with you that these things are frustrating from an author's perspective, like the things that you don't have control over. So what's your advice to writers in terms of, I know this has come up with your coaching clients and in your, for your writing students too, but like, what's your advice for how to deal with that?
I mean, I think one of the things that I've done that's been helpful over the years, and you have actually been a great partner on this in terms of coaching me, to just like have some talking points that I have, so that if a reader reaches out with these questions, I can have a quick response and not have to have it take up too much headspace. But as writers, we're also, we have little tender creative hearts sometimes too. So every time something like that comes in, I'm like, oh, that sucks that you got like a bad binding, or, you want a size that isn't available. But I would say, so from a writing perspective, having some talking points that you can just quickly respond and be like, yes, that's a bummer. Be sure to return the book to your bookstore, your library, etc. And then for readers, just to the darlings out there, hopefully if you've learned that, now like, okay, if I get a bad copy, I'm going to go right to my bookstore. Or, if I want audio, I don't know, start emailing audio publishers and demanding that your favorite books are out in audio or French, or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you have Hollywood movie connections, send them our way.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
I'm all in.
Thanks in advance. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks in advance. Appreciate it. Love it. Yeah. It's always amazing to get any sort of request from a reader who is interested in wanting to read my books. Like, that just goes without saying. So, the takeaway is not like, please don't email me. It's just wanting to educate people and darlings about how the publishing process works and what I as an author can and cannot do.
Right. Well, and it's about time too, right? I mean, if you you're writing full time. I mean, you write what, 2,000 to 3,000 words a day, maybe more sometimes. You don't have time to answer all the questions that come in. And so we try our best to answer people. Yeah. Well, and it's because, like you said, we do care about people's experience, and we want them, but it is still difficult just given the volume. So I guess my advice, my non-writer advice to writers, my tech guy advice would be like, just be sure that you're honest with yourself about time management and what you can truly put in, because it does take a lot of work to grow an audience, and you do want to make those connections and you do want to be helpful to people and stuff. But ultimately, it doesn't matter how big an audience you build or how solid those connections are. If you're not writing, that audience is going to go away. I mean, you've got to be generating the content first and foremost, and then that's a good use of your time. And we've talked a lot about putting out some courses on just kind of website development and social media stuff that you can do to help answer these questions in a more automated fashion without like turning it into like, I am a robot, like here's my answer and everything, but saving writers time and also with the goal of giving readers a better experience overall. So
that's a great
we just got to get on that.
I know. What are we doing with our time here?
Yeah.
And that's a great segue into the next episode of Reality Writes. That's going to focus all on writer organization.
Oh, wow. Okay, there we go.
Like, we planned that and we didn't. I don't even think I told you that was my next idea.
I did not know that. So that is actually, that's great.
Way to go.
That's great.
Weird thing.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I think we've done it for this episode. But as the tech guy said, be sure to follow us on Spotify, share it with your friends, watch on YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts. We so appreciate it.
Yeah. And again, if you like it, drop a comment and let us know if there's something else that you want to know about the writing world or behind the scenes of publishing or reading, whatever it is, let us know. And if you enjoy the show, please drop a rating for us and drop a review. And we would absolutely love to hear from you.
Absolutely. All right. On that note, until next time.
Until next time.